Hello, and welcome to another episode of Space Marine Legions Explained. Today, I will be discussing the instigators of everything, the true heretics, the Word-Bearers. 17th Legiones Astartes, Word-Bearers. If there is a hierarchy of treachery, then the Word-Bearers sit in its highest circle. Once the most devoted and rigorous of warriors, it was not enough that they fell, but they pulled their brother legions into the abyss with them. While the treachery of others came like a storm, or the final flowing of a long-buried seed, the Word-Bearers' betrayal was poison distilled over long years. From their founding, their devotion to the Imperium and the Great Crusade was beyond question. They were the bearers of the ideals of the Imperium, of its vision for the future of humanity. Their loyalty was never questioned, only the form of their devotion. But now, their loyalty can never be seen as anything other than a mask, and their fanaticism as a flaw which would undermine all they once sought to build. Once they were bringers of light to the benighted realms of humanity, but during the Horus Heresy, they brought only the poisoned darkness of old night. Seeking to dominate and bind the demons of the warp, they marched alongside denizens of the abyss and rendered eternal damnation to any who dared to oppose them. Primogenitor, Lorgar the Urizen, aka Lorgar Aurelian. Cognomen, Prior, the Imperial Heralds. Iconoclasts, informal. Observe strategic tendencies, mass assault, policing actions, Gnostic purgation, suppression of ideological revolt. Noteworthy domains: Colchis, Melkagi, Epesia, Golcoron. Garrison oversight on tithing rights on 53 other worlds. Allegiance, Traitoris Maximus. The Imperial Heralds. From its earliest days, the 17th stood apart from its brother legions in both duty and outlook. While all other Legiones Astartes fought with utter devotion, the warriors of the 17th had carried with them an air of zealotry. Recruited from the sons of exterminated foes, they were trained and raised to know the crimes of their forebears and the price of mercy both. While others went to war with righteousness in their hearts, the 17th fought with cold fury that only the at once condemned and redeemed can truly know. While other legions acquired names later in their history, the 17th were named as the Imperial Heralds at their founding. That one amongst 20 should be singled out might imply some special favor, but in truth it was a title that spoke not to a special honor, but to the Legion's place in the Emperor's purpose. Where enemies stood against the Emperor because of their belief in gods or the superstitions of old night, it would fall to the 17th to deliver the Emperor's ultimatum: recant or be destroyed. Once they had conquered, the Imperial Heralds would seek out works which spoke of the power of sorcery, false gods, and irrationality. They emptied libraries, dividing the contents into truth and falsity. Idols and the trappings of worship would be cast down and pulled from temples and shrines. It was a pattern they repeated across ancient terror, earning themselves a second name. Few spoke of the 17th as the Imperial Heralds. To their brother legions and the peoples of the newborn Imperium, they were the Iconoclasts. A fanatical legion. The legion followed much of the structure of the Legiones Astartes during its earliest incarnation. Warriors belonged to squads, squads to companies, and companies to chapters. This functional hierarchy remained largely unchanged from when the Legion was the Imperial Heralds until the revelation of its treachery on Istvan V. The rediscovery of its Primarch and the influx of recruits from Colchis did little to change the Legion's basic structure. Rather, it had layers of organization. This additional layer was concerned not with the composition of units on the battlefield, but with the ideology of those units. Companies were grouped together into chapters of between 500 and 3,000 warriors. Each chapter bore a name and a sigil based on the constellations of cultures: the serrated sun, the Osea's throne, the crescent moon, the weeping hand, the coiled lash, the exalted gate, the twisting rune, the skull's bridle, the knight's chalice. Each were found within the legion's ranks. These large formations were often the building blocks of the Word-Bearers' campaigns. Most crusade fleets consisted of at least one full chapter, and the largest several. Outside of these chapters were elite formations such as the Ashen Circle, the truest iconoclasts of the Legion, charged with the shattering of religious edifices, the slaughtering of the false prophets, and the burning of any book that did not acknowledge the Emperor above all others. Lorgar was both commander and spiritual father to his Legion. The hierarchy of authority within the Legion reflected this dual nature, divided between the military and the spiritual, between mind and heart. On the one hand, the Legion followed simple and robust lines of authority. A chapter master led each chapter, a captain each company, and a sergeant each squad. It was common for a chapter master to designate one of the captains a sub-commander, to act as his lieutenant. The second line of authority in the chapter was spiritual. The chaplains, although nominally attached to companies and chapters, in reality were a brotherhood unto themselves. While each was a warrior, their concern was not for the business of direct command, but for the strength of their brothers' spirits, for the clarity of their purpose, and the purity of their actions. Each chaplain fitted into his own hierarchy, with ascending tiers of knowledge and respect. High chaplains were the ruling circle of their kind, and at their center was the first chaplain. The word-bearers were also well known for the vassal warbands and half-feral fanatics of mortal warriors who accompanied them. Though they themselves were fanatically devoted to the Legion, such forces were treated as largely expendable. These were unleashed on world after world, and yet their number never depleted, showing that behind the word-bearers stood millions more willing to die at their command. Half a century before the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, the word-bearers were the first legionaries to embrace the power of the war, employing singular units such as the Galvorbak. This was a title that over time came to refer to any of the word-bearers who were possessed by the powers of the warp. But those who later bore the title were a lesser breed of abomination compared to the first of the Legion's brethren who sealed their pact with darkness. The Galvorbak were the first of their kind, space marines and demons fused into a single being. After the word-bearers revealed their true nature at Istvan V, the crimson of the Galvorbak spread to the rest of the Legion in fits and starts. The crimson of the Galvorbak spread to the rest of the Legion in fits and starts, and new Galvorbak walked with them, and the secrets of their demonic warriors were spread to several other traitor legions by the Legion's diabolists. Irrespective of their power of pedigree, there has been no greater defilement of the Emperor's work in creating the Space Marines than these loathsome creatures. The priests of the diabolists of the Word-Bearers would remain at Horus's side throughout the galactic civil war, whispering in his ear as the architects of his damnation. The Word-Bearers were a curse upon the galaxy in the Age of Darkness, spreading across the stars seeking a ritual portent, or else unleashing the warp as part of their pact with dark gods. Few loyal Imperial heralds yet existed to oppose their Primarch, for in seeking his primordial truth, Lorgar had long since purged his legion of those who still worshipped the Emperor. The Primarch, Lorgar. Colchis was a world of old gods. It is said that religion was in the air, in the heat of the sun, and the touch of the dust. To its people, Worship of higher powers was as much part of them as the beating of their hearts and the crying of their children. Bound in feudal tradition, it had once been a world of technology, but those days lay long forgotten in old night. When the infant Lorgar fell from the sky of cultures, his legion had yet to be born on Terra, and faith of cultures was held in the hand of a priesthood called the Covenant. Raised among this priestly caste, Lorgar would grow to become one of its number. In time, he turned on those who had raised him, leading a crusade to destroy them in the name not of the old gods, but of one god, a god of gold and light, who spoke to him in his dreams. When the Emperor reached Colchis, there could be no doubt in Lorgar's mind that he knelt before his god. Lorgar soon converted his legion to his belief in the Emperor's divinity, using the nature of the Great Crusade itself. Across countless fronts the legion fought, suffered casualties, and recruited anew. As this attrition mixed the old with the new, Lorgar's sons accepted what was taught to them because it was the only truth offered. In the case of those on Colchis, the belief in the divine was ingrained into every thought from birth. And when all was done, when the final Imperial Herald had embraced the faith, when the last of the old iconoclasts had died, then Lorgar added the final flourish of ritual to seal his victory. The Imperial Heralds would become the Word-Bearers. To the rest of the Imperium, still ignorant of the change wrought in the 17th, the name reflected their part in bringing the Imperial truth to all of humanity. To Lorgar, it was an affirmation of his purpose, to give humanity faith in the God at its pinnacle. This has been the Word-Bearers of the Great Crusade. Thank you for watching.